Roar. A frightening and deafening roar was heard in the middle of the forest. Thump, thump, thump. A terrified young male and female elf were seen running for their lives from the creature who let out that deafening roar. The male elf activated his skill, Step of the Wind, while desperately holding on to the female's arm to distance themselves from the monster chasing after them. Two more skills, Fleet of Foot and Greengoer, were activated in succession by the young male, in haste, to increase their speed to the maximum. The confused female elf, named Malika, cried out in panic to the male elf Orntal to slow down, since she thought they were running way too fast. It is revealed that she is a level 9 wood elf, in what looks to be a status window as seen in video games. Orntal responds to Malika that he couldn't slow down because the monster was right behind them. He yells that she should continue running with all her might and never look back, because if the monster caught up to them, then only death awaited them. It is also revealed that he is a level 10 elf ranger in his status window. After running some distance, loud footsteps could still be heard behind them. The frightened young girl couldn't help but take a look back. Orntal scolds her that she should concentrate on escaping and nothing else, otherwise she would only end up as food inside the monster's stomach. Malika, in return, desperately cries out to Orntal to use his ranger skills to help them escape from their current predicament. Orntal tightly closes his eyes in despair and tells Malika that he has no more skills left to use. Bing! At that moment he suddenly opened his eyes. He received a notification that he gained a new skill called Flight of the Coward. He fulfilled the requirement of not being able to summon courage in the face of danger, and therefore received the new skill and gained a second wind while running away from the monster. His speed abruptly accelerated, and he quickly thanked the god Lothran, hoping that his newfound speed would be enough to escape. He grabbed onto Malika's hand tightly and told her to hold on since they were about to go S to the U to the P to the ER, supersonic. Whoosh! They needed to return to the village immediately to warn the villagers about the monster. In the meantime, the monster halted his pursuit after seeing the elves go supersonic and sighed. When the two young elves finally made it to the village, they immediately raised the alarm. Malika, physically and mentally exhausted from the terrifying escape, couldn't help but drop to her knees to rest. Orntal was still high as a kite on adrenaline and revealed to the villagers that the monster chasing after them was actually a human. The villagers couldn't help but exclaim in horror that their worst nightmare, the humans, have returned. A battle-tested warrior was seen to be in deep thought and stayed calm while the rest of the villagers were in a panic. A while later, the warrior entered a building and walked towards what seemed to be the elders of the village. The head elder asked the warrior if he already heard of the news. In response, the warrior confirmed that he did, since the young elf, Orntal's, warning screams were loud enough to wake the dead. We discover that the warrior's name is Riordin. After receiving a detailed report from Orntal regarding the human, the worried head elder mentioned to Riordin that he was needed by the village to guard against the human. Riordin, in response to the elder, seemed to put little importance on the matter and stated that the human was young and was currently not a threat to them. But the elder reminded Riordin that it was better to be cautious, since humans could level up at an astonishing speed. In this regard, even young humans are considered very dangerous and a threat to others. The elder then recalled the past, when the humans started a terrible war of the Six Nations over a simple border dispute. It was seen during the war how the humans were so greedy to level up that they knew no bounds. He then went on to mention that the humans would have conquered the world if all of the other nations hadn't joined together to stop the humans. The humans were so formidable that even when the Six Nations of elves, merfolk, harpies, dwarves, gellan, and dragonkin gathered together, they were barely able to defeat the humans. It was seen during the war countless times that the longer the humans fought, the more dramatically their level increased. It was like a drug addiction that would eventually lead to their insanity. The humans who ultimately lost their minds from leveling were impossible to control. In the end, the humans were finally destroyed by what they called the cataclysm. After all this time of peace, no humans have been seen, until now. After the elders' recollection of the war and the destruction of the humans, He turned to Riordan and told him that the new human threat was real, and he was needed by everyone to defend against this danger. We find out that Riordan is a level 48 ranger, an elite ranger, and currently in a state of sadness. Since the two other experienced rangers, Kira and Menta, were not present in the village, the head elder requested that Riordan take up the task of investigating the human. He should act accordingly to the situation before the human loses his sanity. Riordan couldn't help but hesitate to agree to the task because of self-doubt, and also because he remembered all of the lives lost during the war. Another elder spoke up in a gentle tone to comfort the ranger, stating that they all still remember the lost lives and share the pain. And he went on to remind Riordan that he was the only elite ranger left in the village. Riordan pauses for a brief moment to digest the elder's words. He closes his eyes and thinks of all the innocent lives in the village and finally comes to a decision. With a newfound determination, he looks towards the elders and agrees to their command. He will investigate the human and protect this village from any threat, even at the cost of his life. The scene shifts to the forest. We see Riordan with a team of rangers hiding in a shrub preparing for an ambush. In the distance, they spot a silhouette. One of the team members starts to ask their leader Riordan a question regarding the silhouette, but was quickly told to hold and stay quiet. Riordan then immediately activates his identify skill on the silhouette. They have found the human. The human is at level 4 and in a severe state of sadness and depression. The human is seen dragging his sword, walking over the dead animal carcass that he just killed. He complains of hunger while aimlessly heading forward in search of something edible. With his gaze focused on the human, Riordan cautiously draws an arrow from behind and proceeds to place it on his bow. He takes aim at the human in the distance and activates two skills, Power Shot and Piercing Arrow, and softly murmurs to himself that this shot will be quick and painless. Swoosh! The arrow was released at the target, and Riordan already considered the death of the target settled, since he highly doubted the low-level human could dodge the surprise attack. He prayed that the human god would welcome this person into their gentle embrace, and he hoped that this human, along with any other of his kind, would never disturb their peaceful land of Ixaton ever again. Alarmed, the human seemed to be able to detect the incoming arrow, and at the last moment, he was able to miraculously dodge in time. Boom! A loud explosion was heard, and the large tree that the arrow collided with was seen to have an enormous hole where it had been pierced through. Anything in the arrow's way would have been completely obliterated. With surprise, Riordan exclaimed that even at such a low level, the human was very quick to be able to dodge his enhanced arrow. He, along with his other team members, hastily drew their arrows and took aim at the human target once again. Swish, swish, swish! Multiple arrows were released in succession at the human, who could only gasp at the barrage of arrows while quickly formulating a plan of action to try to escape from the dire situation with the least amount of damage. Fwip, fwip, fwip! He was able to skillfully dodge multiple arrows successfully, but in a brief moment of distraction, his right thigh was pierced through by an arrow. He couldn't help but let out an agonizing scream because of the pain. At that exact moment, Riordan found an opening. He saw that the injured human let his guard down for a brief moment and decided to rush forward to engage the enemy in a close combat battle. Clang! With quick reflexes, the human was able to parry Riordan's incoming sword attack. Clang! Clang! A heated sword battle commenced, and it seemed that both sides were even, with neither side being able to gain an upper hand. That is until the human, in a moment of desperation, swung his sword down towards Riordan's head with all his might. Riordan was luckily able to block it while taking a slight step back. While in a disadvantageous position and with a distressed look on his face, Riordan suddenly hears his enemy plead for someone to listen to him. The human's eyes were clear with a pleading gaze. It didn't look like someone who was insane, but an individual with no hostility and a person who could be reasoned with. The human proceeded to say that if somebody could understand him, then... Before he could finish speaking, a loud roar was heard, which startled both parties who were engaged in the sword fight. A rumbling noise and cracking trees could be heard coming closer and closer. Anticipating the looming threat of danger approaching, Riordan decisively commanded his team of rangers to fall back to safety. A massive-looking ancient creature with a resemblance to a bear appeared out of nowhere and charged towards the two fighters and the rest of the ranger team. The creature was at level 42 and seemed to have been infected, which caused it to go out of control and attack anything in sight. Riordan was able to swiftly dodge the creature's attack, but the unfortunate human was unable to dodge in time and was violently thrown backwards. The other rangers were also unable to escape in time and were attacked by the wild creature. They were brutally hurled into the air and landed in a daze, unable to move, while the bear headed towards them to finish off its prey. Before the wild beast was able to strike down on the injured ranger with its left paw, Riordan, in a desperate attempt, jumped towards the beast's back, hoping to deliver a lethal strike. He was able to stab the bear, and blood immediately gushed out from the wound, diverting the beast's attention away from the injured ranger. The sword was stabbed so hard into the animal's flesh that it became stuck, and even when trying with all his might, Riordan was unable to retrieve his weapon. A hint of worry crept up on his face as he rapidly pondered his next move, since he would now have to accomplish it without his weapon. Growl. He leapt off the infected beast after hearing the angry growl. The beast now set its sights on the elite ranger who dared to injure it, wishing to tear this elf to pieces. Riordan could only rush backwards, clueless of how he should proceed now. Unable to escape from the monster, he barely managed to raise his arms as he fell on his back, while the enraged beast hurled itself on top of him. Crack! Unable to handle the weight of the bear, his right leg snapped under the enormous pressure. Now in an unfavorable position, he set aside the pain of a broken leg since he was desperately fighting for his dear life. All out of ideas for countermeasures or escape, Riordan could only watch in horror while the crazed beast was preparing to tear his head off. In the meantime, the human was able to get back onto his feet and pondered his next move. He was trying to decide whether to kill the beast and save the ranger, or first let the beast kill the ranger who tried to assassinate him and then slaughter the beast. He figured that killing the wild animal would allow him to level up several times because of the enormous gap in power and levels between himself and the animal. He made his decision, but wanted to let the ranger, who was pinned under the bear, to suffer a while longer as payback for trying to murder him. With all his might, he jumped up high in the air and drove his huge sword into the back of the beast's head. Riordan, who was beneath the beast, felt a little relief that it was now dead but was worried about his own fate, since he knew he would be helpless against the human. But first, he had to quickly move away so he wouldn't be trapped beneath the bear's corpse and allow his enemy to easily cut him down with the sword. With a loud thud, he watched the lifeless body of the animal fall to the floor. After creating some distance between himself and his enemy, Riordan proceeded to stare at the human who was standing completely still, hovering over the dead animal. He then prayed to his god Lothran for mercy while preparing himself mentally for what was going to happen next. The human began to glow and looked like some kind of undefeatable war god. He gained a massive level up from level 4 to level 8 after defeating the animal titled the Frenzied Massive Ancient Bear. Riordan once again used his identify skill on the human. A bead of sweat trickled down his face as he worriedly noticed the massive jump in level from 4 to 8. In alarm, he also noticed that the enemy's level-high status rose from mild to moderate. With a frightened look, he mentions that he hasn't seen this type of leveling in such a long time. He remembered in the past how horrible it was, and pretty much forgot about it after all the humans were destroyed. It seems he developed some form of PTSD after the war, seeing how the humans were able to level up so speedily, exactly like this enemy right in front of him. Ecstatic after the kill and the massive level up, the human retrieved his sword and calmly walked towards the injured elite ranger. Frozen in fear, Riordan could only watch in terror while the human stood in front of him. All the confidence he had in the beginning of the fight completely disappeared, like a fart in the wind. With a serious look, the human told Riordan that he tried to kill him. He slowly repeated his words once again in a more serious voice, that the elf, along with everything else in the god-forsaken forest, tried to kill him, even though he did nothing to them. He raised his sword ready to strike down the elf, while the elf could only helplessly raise his right arm, preparing for the inevitable. With an evil grin, he told the elf that he received 4 levels from killing the bear, and wondered how many he would receive from the elf.